The Eagles have descended on Las Vegas as two of the NFL's most raucous fan bases look on this afternoon. The Birds take on the Raiders in a city that's pretty much seen it all. This marks a first. The Eagles have never played in Vegas before, and yeah, it's Vegas, but is the city really ready for all these screaming Eagle fans? We're glad to have you with us here on the Kickoff Show presented by Axalta. Amy Campbell joined by Fran Duffy. Fran, we've been hearing from our teammates out in Vegas, in the arena right now, how loud it already is. It's going to be an atmosphere unlike any other. Two of the loudest fan bases in the NFL. Throw Vegas into the mix. I think it's off the charts.
I could tell you that, having family that grew up, obviously, Eagles fans, everybody was excited when they knew, they're going to play a game in Vegas. When is that game going to be? This was one of the games circled on the calendar for Eagles fans. Now we'll see if the team can come away with a W. Yeah,
we're hoping for a good show, as Las Vegas always tends to give us, as we head back out there to take a look at the Eagles warming up. Warm-ups, as always, courtesy of PA Lottery. And look, we know this is a Vegas team that has been in the headlines the past couple weeks with the departure of John Gruden under those circumstances. A lot of questions last week about if this team would suffer a letdown. They looked galvanized, a really impressive win against the Broncos. But, Fran, I have an interesting statistic for you about that. Interim head coaches in their first game in the last decade, 12-9, otherwise 44-80. So watch the letdown today for this Raiders team. Still a lot of talent, but plenty of opportunity for the Eagles in Las Vegas.
I was going to say, I wonder what the Week 2 record is for those. Because, look, everybody wants to get around the new head coach. And pretty much everybody you talk to about Rick Bisaccia will say, this guy deserves a shot to be a head coach. It's been a long time coming for him. But this Raiders team goes out on the road, gets a division win last week. We'll see if they can they keep it rolling. But the Eagles, this is a big test on both sides of the football here against a team that has won a lot of games so far in 2021.
Well, and we are certainly thrilled to see Lane Johnson back on the football field after missing a few weeks. And he opened up about some of the mental health struggles that he had been dealing with. The team and the city really embraced him. So important to speak about those things. I'm really proud of him for being vocal about it. And, of course, we're thrilled to see him back on the field. Glad he's feeling ready to be back, and he's going to make a huge difference for this team today.
One of the best offensive linemen in the NFL.
Yeah.
And, I mean, when you can add that back into your lineup, that is obviously huge for the entire offense. And so great to see number 65 back out there in Eagles green here this afternoon.
Yeah, really exciting to have him back in the offensive lineup. Let's take a look at that offensive lineup for the Eagles today going up against the Raiders. And the one I want to circle right off the bat is tight end Dallas Goddard. The Eagles, of course, made the really difficult and emotional decision to trade Zach Ertz to Arizona. Howie Roseman saying a part of the rationale for that was Dallas Goddard is on the end of his rookie deal, and they think he's the tight end of the future, and they really want to give him a shot to see what he can do as the lone starting tight end in this Eagles offense. So there's a little bit of pressure on him, but there's plenty of opportunity. He is so excited for that opportunity, and this is his chance. All eyes are going to be on him moving forward.
Yeah, I think when you look at Dallas Goddard and his body of work over the course of his career, he has shown all of the traits to be a quality number one tight end in the modern day NFL. Whether it's as a pass catcher, as a run blocker, as a pass protector, you see him running routes, you see him beating press coverage, you see him at the catch point, after the catch. The traits are all there. Now the question is, can you put it all together over the course of the final two-thirds of the season as the guy? He's never had this opportunity to be the guy in the offense, and now he gets that chance to put his skill set on display in that role for the first time in his career. And now, hopefully, for him, for his sake, trying to put that, turn that into a new contract.
We're getting a glimpse here of the team's leading tackler here, Alex Singleton. Let's talk a little bit about the matchup for this Eagles defense. They're going up against a Raiders offense that put up 34 points last week against the Broncos, a good Broncos defense. They're averaging 24.5 points per game. They're very explosive in the passing game. They have a lot of big pieces. Some of the big names we're going to be talking about. Henry Ruggs III, I think, is probably the top guy we're going to be talking about. But there's also Bryan Edwards, who's another star receiver. They are going to be without Darren Waller today. He's a late scratch, so that's going to help the Eagles a little bit. But let's talk about the matchup for the Eagles defense. Let's go big picture to get things started.
When you look at this receiving core, the parts really complement each other well. You have Henry Ruggs, the top 10 pick last year, who is that certified deep threat. He could take the top off the defense, leading the NFL in big plays at the wide receiver position. Then you have Bryan Edwards, like you mentioned, really reliable, big-bodied threat, can win at all three levels as well. And then you've got Hunter Renfrow in the slot, one of the best slot receivers, and he can win underneath. He's an outstanding route runner. And so when you have all of these pieces that complement each other well, yeah, Darren Waller, his presence, that is going to be missed in this offense. He leads that team in targets right now. He is the #1 weapon in the passing game. That said, they still have a lot of guys that they can get the football to. Foster Moreau, the backup tight end, he's kind of a do-everything type. He's obviously not as athletic, not as dynamic as Waller, but they are fine flexing him out and having him line up as a receiver and doing a lot of things. So I don't think that the offensive scheme is going to change necessarily for the Raiders coming into this one. It's just a matter of losing that talent in Darren Waller.
Well, let's take a look at the defensive starters here for the Eagles, the guys that are going to be matching up against this explosive Raiders offense. The matchup I really like is this Eagles front against the Raiders offensive line. I think there is a lot of vulnerability there on the Vegas offensive line. They've struggled to give their quarterback time. They have really struggled in the run game as well, allowing the run to develop. What do you think about the matchup for these guys up front, the Javon Hargrave and the Fletcher Coxes of the bunch here?
I think when you look at this Raiders offensive line, that's been the kind of the Achilles heel for that unit. Otherwise, they've been extremely explosive, but the run game has been inconsistent. Pass protection, when that has been down, that's affected Derek Carr. And I think when you look at that line from left to right, Colton Miller, solid starter at left tackle. Then after that, you have a number of different questions. John Simpson at left guard. He's more of a run blocker, and he's in his second year, still very inexperienced. Andre James at center. He's a converted college tackle, now a starter for the first time in his career. He has really struggled in pass protection. At right guard, they had to make a change. They shifted Alex Leatherwood, who was the first-round pick this past year. He'd been at right tackle. They slid him inside the right guard. He looked fine there this past week against Denver. And then they put in a former third-round pick, Brandon Parker. Again, more of a run blocker than pass protector. So you've got some questions about those guys' ability to hold up against the pass. The Eagles' defensive front, that's going to be one of the more pivotal matchups in this game.
And what about the Raiders' run game? Last week they got it going a little bit. It was actually like a little mini Alabama game there because the touchdowns in their game last week were from Josh Jacobs, Henry Ruggs, and Kenyon Drake, all Alabama guys, which is just it says so much about the Tides program. And of course, Devontae Smith and Henry Ruggs were roommates in college. Devontae Smith talked about that earlier this week. But let's talk about that run game for Vegas and just what has been the struggle for them. Does it come down to the offensive line? Or is it just a combination of things?
Yeah, the offensive line, and then Josh Jacobs was hurt for a lot of the year as well. And so he got back healthy a couple of weeks ago, back in the lineup. He scored a touchdown last week. He is a physical back, really, really tough and competitive. He could do a lot of different things for an offense. Hasn't necessarily been used in the passing game throughout the course of his career. That said, this past week, you saw him be targeted a little bit more through the air. So he can hurt you in a lot of different ways. But the Eagles have to be ready. Even though the Raiders haven't necessarily run the ball super effective over the course of a 6-game season thus far, they ran the ball pretty well last week against Denver. They got Drake going. They got Jacobs going. My guess is they'll try and see if they can get the rushing attack going here this afternoon.
All right, and let's talk about the Raiders defense a little bit. Nick Sirianni talked earlier this week about Raiders defensive coordinator Gus Bradley, who he said was absolutely a huge influence on him in his coaching career. He said he changed him as a coach. Gus Bradley has them playing well. They have a lot of talent, and they play a little bit of a similar flavor to the way the Eagles play defense.
Yeah, and I think when you look at it from an identity standpoint, it's very similar. It's heavy zone coverage, low volume blitz. They just do it a little bit differently. I think when you look at the Raiders, they play more cover 3 than anybody. Gus Bradley comes from that Pete Carroll, Seattle Seahawks, Legion of Boom tree, right? So they play a lot of cover 3. We'll get into that a little bit later. They don't blitz. They're the only team in the NFL that blitzes less than the Eagles do. So it's going to be a 4-man rush, heavy zone coverage. The Eagles know pretty much how they're going to line up. So it's all week they've been trying to figure out, how are we going to play against this coverage? There are different ways to beat every single coverage. The Eagles now just have to go out and execute. That's going to be the big task here for Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, and the rest of the offensive operation here in this matchup.
Well, and leading the Raiders linebacking core, Denzel Perryman, who coming into today leads the NFL in tackles with 73. What kind of threat does he pose to an offense?
He's definitely one of those tackle machines, right? But the tackles don't always tell the whole story. We'll see if the Eagles can take advantage of that matchup, but I'll talk about that here in a couple of minutes.
Oh, yeah, I love that. All right, sounds good. Looks like a really exciting environment out there, almost as exciting as the environment that we have here in studio. As always, we thank PA Lottery for bringing us those warm-ups, and we are now joined by Eagles insider Dave Spadaro. Dave, the Eagles on the road in Las Vegas, a really electric environment, a ton of Eagles fans that have traveled there. This is a team now 6 games in, has not played as well as they want to. They're hoping to make a few changes moving forward. What do they need to do to turn things around moving forward, starting today?
Yeah, I think you play to your strengths, and the strengths of this football team, your offensive line and your defensive line. And to me, this is not going to be complicated today. Win in the trenches. You know, all season we've kind of talked about the offensive line, the defensive line. I really like what the Eagles have going on up front offensively with Mailata on the left side, back on the left side, Lane Johnson on the right side. I like the young guards, Jason Kelsey, of course. So I think get back to the basics. These couple of days they had last in the mini bye weekend, you don't need to rip things apart. You don't need to panic right now, but just rely on your offensive lines and your defensive line. I mean, right? It's that, to me, it seems that it really has to start there for the Philadelphians. And, of course, the penalties must stop. It is just killing this football team.
Yeah, timely penalties, of course, as well. I'll be interested to see if the run game becomes more of a factor here in this one, Dave. Big question, though. What's the big storyline here in this match?
All right, so the last time the Eagles led at halftime, the opener in Atlanta.
Oh, my goodness.
So you cannot keep playing from behind. You must start fast. It's been an emphasis for Nick Sirianni all week with his football team. So how do you do it? Well, you come out and you rely on your offensive lines and your defensive line, and you don't put yourself in terrible positions with penalties. You don't go to 3rd and long with the offense. You get out of 3rd and short situations with the defense by being better on 1st and 2nd down. So to me, that is the storyline. Hey, come out fast. Play good football. They haven't led at halftime since the game in Atlanta. Not surprisingly, that's been the best game of the season for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Gosh, that's hard to believe. That was such a long time ago. And it seemed like when you talked to Nick Sirianni this week, it seemed like his big takeaway from the self-scouting that he did over those extra couple of days was wanting to get those fast starts.
Yeah.
So, Dave, for you today, what makes the difference for the Eagles between a win and a loss?
Well, look, no Darren Waller is a big deal. Limit the explosive passing game of the Raiders, and that's what Jonathan Gannon and this Eagles defense, that is kind of the overarching theme of this defense. Don't let a big play beat you. So it's all set up very nicely for the Eagles today. Without Darren Waller, with an advantage up front for the Eagles, defensive line versus a Raiders offensive line that's just not that good. So I really do think the Eagles defensively can kind of dictate against a team that hasn't run the ball very well, a team that's going to look to go down the field. That kind of plays into the hands of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, it does seem like it plays into their strengths today. It's going to be a fun matchup. Fran, what about for you? What's going to make the difference today?
Well, you asked me earlier about Denzel Perryman. What did the Eagles do to kind of win that matchup? And I think when you look at Perryman, yeah, he comes downhill. He gets a lot of tackles in the run game. He can make plays sideline to sideline, but he's not great in coverage. And really, you wouldn't say that about any of the 3 starting linebackers for this Raiders defense, whether it's Corey Littleton on the weak side, Perryman on the inside, or KJ Wright at strong side linebacker. That's been one of the weaknesses for this defensive scheme so far. Even though they play a lot of zone, when you get those linebackers moving in space, they can get them isolated against backs and tight ends. That's where the Eagles can try and make some hay. I'll be interested to see if the running backs and tight ends can be a factor in this one.
Well, I'm also very interested to see if they can be a factor in this one, specifically the running backs. And the Eagles need to run the ball against this Raiders defense that's 25th in the league in stopping the run. So plenty of opportunity there. And this has been something that coaches have talked about plenty. Of course, the fans have cried for it, but the coaches have also said, hey, we want to get the run game going a little bit more, especially when it comes to getting Miles Sanders a little bit more involved. And I really like the matchup, especially for Miles Sanders today against this Raiders defense that has been a little bit vulnerable against
and again, it kind of goes back to relying on your offensive line, right? Like you want to play a little small ball here. Don't go crazy. Jalen Hurts will have his opportunities to throw the football, but be better on 1st and 2nd down, and I think that is the run game. So I agree with you, and I agree with you. Getting the football, easy completions to Gainwell and to Sanders and test those Raiders linebackers.
I'm so glad we're all in agreement here today.
There we go.
Yeah, and also I think
now hopefully they're listening.
Hopefully I know they always tune in to watch the pregame show right before the game. Also, I think we can all agree that this tie is fantastic.
Thank you.
Love having you in studio as
Thank
always.
You.
All right, thanks, Dave. Now let's head across the street to Lincoln Financial Field to check in with our friends Merrill Reese and Mike Quick. They've got our players to watch.
Amy, Allegiant Stadium packed with Philadelphians today. Mike, who is your Eagle to watch?
This was an easy one for me with no Zach Ertz on the field. It's Dallas Goddard, number 88. I think he's going to be targeted a lot, and we'll have the opportunity to see him step up as the number 1 tight end target.
They've got some big-time wide receivers, so my Eagle to watch is number 29, Avonte Maddox. He is having an excellent season. People talk about Slay, they talk about the other defensive players, But this is the year that Avonte Maddox has really stepped forward. So he is my player to watch. Back to you, Amy.
All right, thanks, guys. The Philadelphia Eagles and Axalta Coding Systems have built a roster of all-pro teachers. Go to PhiladelphiaEagles.com/Axalta All-Pro Teachers to view this year's outstanding recipients. And Eagles fans score official NFL gear every week just by drinking Pepsi. Purchase Eagles Pepsi bottles or packs, scan the code to start building points, and redeem them for Eagles gear or a shot at the grand prize every single week. Visit MadeForEaglesWatching.com for rules and to enter. A lot of pressure will be on the Eagles secondary today as they look to shut down the Raiders' explosive pass catchers. Eagles corner Avonte Maddox is embracing the responsibility that comes with being the team's starting nickel corner. Now in his 4th year in the NFL, Maddox joins Mike Quick for this week's one-on-one presented by Pond Hockey.
Avonte, thanks for joining us. You know, you guys played on a Thursday night. You've had a long layoff, almost a mini bye week. How does that help you, help your body?
It helps a lot. I mean, it's a chance to give your body a chance to recover and, get off your feet and, able to sit back and reflect on, the past games or in the game you just played a little bit longer. And it gives you a chance to watch teams on Sunday that you usually kind of don't get the chance to do. So it's just a lot of time you can spend with your family and things like that. So it's definitely a good time to get that little mini bye weekend and, able to rest your body and recover.
Well, in terms of your preparation for the upcoming game against the Raiders, how have you used that time to prepare for them?
During that time, as you're recovering, of course, I got the game on Sunday you can watch. You don't really have your cutoffs made already, but you could definitely head into the film, look into the iPad and, just check out just like full-blown games that I'm playing.
With your time in the NFL, you've played multiple positions. How do you think that has helped you now that you're mainly a nickel guy? How has that helped you?
Just playing multiple positions, it helps me a lot because you start to learn where pieces are going to be because I had the opportunity to play that position, like if it was safety or corner. So, being at the nickel spot, okay, I know where my safety will be and where my help will be because I've been there. As you move around, you can show you're valuable in different spots. You're able to get moved around. So if anything happened, they know they have someone they can depend on. This year I've been playing a lot of nickel and, I've been enjoying it.
Tell me a little more about you in the nickel. What's it like there?
It's challenging. You have to know a lot. It's a lot of movements and a lot of eyes and key fits. You have to know you're dealing with the run fit a lot more. You're dealing with the pass game a lot more. You have to be the one that call out the checks and things like that. So, it's a lot on your plate, but, I'm up for any challenge there is, so it doesn't really matter.
There's this saying that turnovers come in bunches, and you guys are starting to get turnovers now. Explain that to me.
Yeah, they definitely come in bunches. You got a time where it's kind of dry and you're trying to get them, but they're not coming. And then it ended up being 4 weeks in a row, you just getting turnover after turnover. So they definitely come in bunches, but the main key is just attacking the ball. You have to be able to punch it out, or when the ball is in the air, you're attacking the ball as if you're the receiver. Or, even when you're going in for that sack, you're not just sacking the guy, you're trying to go for that strip sack. You go for that arm that's throwing, not just get the sack, get the strip sack.
A lot of speed you're dealing with going out to the desert in Las Vegas. You got Ruggs, you got Waller, you got Renfro. Tell me about the challenge dealing with all of that speed.
Ruggs is definitely super fast. Just watching film, he can go. And tight end is crazy fast as well. He's not the normal tight end you would normally see on a regular day. So, it's definitely going to be a challenge, but, we're up to the challenge no matter who it is. And when we get out there, we just got to make sure we keep the top on the roof and give our chance for our line to get to the quarterback so we can get some disruption and we can get some interception.
Thanks, Avonte. Good luck out in the desert.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
So Avonte Maddox, now in his 4th year in the NFL, has really cemented himself as the Eagles' starting nickel corner. What kind of pressure is on that position in this Eagles defense?
Well, I think a lot of people think of the nickel corner and say, oh, well, you got to match up with the slot receiver. And certainly they do have to do that. Avonte Maddox will get matched up against opposing slot receivers. Look for him against Hunter Renfro here in this game. But since the Eagles play a lot of zone coverage, it's not always going to be that one-on-one matchup. So you have to do a lot of different things. First of all, you have to be really good in underneath zone coverage. That's often where Avonte Maddox is going to play. So whether it's in the middle of the field or out close to the sideline, he's going to play in underneath zone, deal with a lot of those quick game routes. But the other part of it as well is going to be in the run game. And whether you're dealing with wide receivers blocking you at the point of attack, a tight end trying to block you at the point of attack, even pulling offensive linemen, you have to be able to deal with contact and try and defeat blocks and get downhill. And that's been an area, Amy, where honestly, I think that he has gotten a lot better over these last 2, 3, 4 games, especially last week against Tampa. I thought he made a number of really impressive plays playing downhill.
Well, in the past few years, he's played all over in the secondary, mostly at slot, but with all of the injuries that unit had dealt with, you know, everybody was really versatile. And now he's really solidified himself. How have you seen him kind of evolve his game over the last few seasons since his rookie year in Philly? It just feels like yesterday to me.
I know. Well, what you typically see with young players is that as they get a little bit more accustomed to playing in the league, that confidence level grows. And Avonte Maddox was one of those players that you saw that confidence immediately. He was a 4-year starter at Pitt, so playing the game was not foreign to him. But the big thing is obviously it's a big jump in speed from college to the NFL. And so you see a guy, as he's been in the league longer, he starts to be a little bit more confident, a little bit more calm and collected. A little bit of a change with the new defensive scheme, obviously, but you're still out there playing football. It's a lot of the same coverages that he played in previous schemes. You're just doing it a little bit differently. And so that's what you're starting to see, just a little bit more confidence as the season has gone on.
And he has a tough test today against the Raiders pass catchers, as does the whole Eagles secondary. Let's flip it to the other team. Let's look at the Raiders secondary, which brings us to your Rico extra point.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier. Gus Bradley defense, not a lot of mystery, not a lot of disguise. They're going to play cover 3. It's a heavy zone coverage scheme. They play it more than anybody in the NFL. And what is cover 3? Well, you're going to play with 3 deep defenders down the field, 4 defenders underneath. And when you play with cover 3, you're going to have 2 very distinct safety responsibilities. You have a designated free safety and a designated strong safety. And for the Raiders, those 2 guys are Trevon Merrick, the rookie second-round pick, and Jonathan Abram, a former first-round pick. And these guys fit these roles perfectly. Again, Merrick in the post, Abram underneath. And when you're that free safety, Trevon Merrick, you have got to play with outstanding range. You have got to have great instincts. You've got to be able to make plays on the football. And then also, you've got to run the alley. You've got to come down and defend the run from depth. Merrick did all of those things at TCU. He does them all in this Raiders defense. Then you go down to Abram. You've got to play in traffic. You've got to be able to play those underneath zones. And you've got to blitz the quarterback. A lot of the same things we talked about with Avonte Maddox just a couple minutes ago, those safeties have to do in that cover 3 scheme. Both of these safeties, Amy, had interceptions last week in the game against Denver and Teddy Bridgewater. Jalen Hurts has to know where these 2 safeties are at all times in this cover 3 scheme.
I actually think this game is going to come down to turnovers. I think that's going to be, we haven't talked about it yet, but I think that's going to be something else to watch in this matchup. I think that could play a key role. Of course, don't forget to tune in after the game is over for the post-game show presented by Rico. We'll have coach and player press conferences as well as instant analysis immediately following the game. Can the Eagles fly home from Las Vegas with a win? The Raiders are in their way. Enjoy the game, everybody, and fly, Eagles, fly.